In this video, we delve into a series of harrowing road trip experiences that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Road trips are often romanticized as adventures filled with scenic views, laughter, and unforgettable memories. However, the reality can be quite different, as we will discover through the personal stories shared by our brave narrators. Each tale reveals the unpredictability that comes with hitting the open road, where every mile can lead to unexpected twists and turns. From mechanical failures in the middle of nowhere to encounters with strange locals, these experiences remind us that not all journeys go as planned. The tone of the video is intentionally engaging and suspenseful, drawing viewers into the narratives that unfold. As we listen to these gripping accounts, we are reminded of the thrill and anxiety that accompany travel, where the promise of adventure can quickly turn into a test of resilience. The unpredictability of road trips is a central theme, as each storyteller recounts moments that transform their journeys into unforgettable and sometimes terrifying experiences. Whether it's a wrong turn that leads to an eerie abandoned town or a sudden storm that changes everything, these stories highlight the wild nature of travel. So buckle up and prepare for a roller coaster of emotions as we explore the darker side of road trips, where every journey holds the potential for both wonder and chaos. Every year, I eagerly anticipate my annual road trip to visit friends in Berkeley, a journey that has become a cherished tradition in my life. This trip is not just about the destination. It symbolizes the deep bond I share with my friends, who have become like family over the years. Each visit is a chance to reconnect, reminisce about old times, and create new memories together. The significance of this trip goes beyond mere socializing. It represents a commitment to maintaining these vital relationships, despite the distance that separates us. As I pack my bags and prepare for the drive, I feel a rush of excitement, knowing that I will soon be surrounded by familiar faces and laughter. The journey itself is an adventure, filled with anticipation as I plan my route and the various sites I want to visit along the way. I love the idea of exploring new places, and each year I make it a point to discover something different. From quirky roadside attractions to breathtaking natural landscapes, the road trip offers a unique opportunity to experience the beauty of the world outside my window. I often find myself stopping at charming little diners, local markets, and scenic viewpoints, each stop adding to the richness of the journey. The thrill of the open road with its endless possibilities fuels my excitement as I drive through picturesque towns and vibrant cities, each with its own story to tell. One of the most significant decisions I make each year is to drive instead of flying. While flying is undoubtedly faster, I crave the sense of adventure that comes with a road trip. The freedom of the open road allows me to take detours, explore hidden gems, and truly immerse myself in the experience. There's something magical about the journey itself, the way the landscape changes as I travel, and the feeling of being in control of my own adventure. Driving gives me the chance to reflect on life, listen to my favorite playlists, and enjoy the solitude of the road, all while building anticipation for the reunion with my friends. As I hit the highway, the excitement builds with every mile. I often find myself reminiscing about past trips, recalling the laughter and the unforgettable moments we've shared. The memories of late-night conversations, spontaneous adventures, and shared meals fill my mind, reminding me of the importance of these friendships. Each year, as I approach Berkeley, I can feel the energy of the city welcoming me back, and I can't help but smile at the thought of reuniting with my friends. The journey is not without its challenges, of course. There are times when I encounter unexpected roadblocks, whether it's traffic jams, construction delays, or even the occasional wrong turn. However, these obstacles only add to the adventure, forcing me to adapt and find new routes. I've learned to embrace the unpredictability of the road, knowing that each twist and turn can lead to a new experience. It's during these moments that I often discover hidden treasures, a stunning vista, a quaint cafe, or a friendly local who shares their favorite spots in the area. As I drive through the diverse landscapes, from rolling hills to coastal views, I am reminded of the beauty that surrounds us. The changing scenery serves as a backdrop to my thoughts, and I often find inspiration in the world outside my car window. The vibrant colors of the sunset, the sound of waves crashing against the shore, and the scent of pine trees fill my senses, creating a tapestry of experiences that enrich my journey. Each stop along the way becomes a part of the story I'll share with my friends when we finally reunite. When I finally arrive in Berkeley, the excitement reaches its peak. The moment I pull into the driveway of my friend's home, I am greeted with warm hugs and laughter, instantly feeling at home. The bond we share is palpable, and it's as if no time has passed since our last visit. We spend hours catching up, sharing stories, and reliving the memories that have brought us together. The significance of this trip is evident in the joy we all feel, a reminder of the importance of nurturing our friendships and making time for one another. In the days that follow, we embark on new adventures together, exploring the vibrant culture of Berkeley, visiting local shops, and enjoying delicious meals at our favorite restaurants. Each moment is filled with laughter and camaraderie, reinforcing the connections that have stood the test of time. The road trip may have brought me here, but it's the friendships that truly make the journey worthwhile. As I prepare to head back home, I reflect on the experiences I've had along the way, the sights I've seen, the people I've met, and the memories I've created. The annual road trip to Berkeley is more than just a journey. It's a celebration of friendship, adventure, and the beauty of life's unpredictability. I leave with a full heart, already looking forward to next year's trip, knowing that the road will always lead me back to the people who matter most. As I continued my journey toward Berkeley, the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the highway. I decided to take a break at a desolate rest stop that I had spotted on the side of the road. The moment I pulled into the parking lot, an unsettling feeling washed over me. The rest stop was eerily quiet, with only the faint rustle of leaves in the wind and the distant sound of crickets breaking the silence. The flickering fluorescent lights overhead cast an unflattering glow, illuminating the cracked pavement and the dilapidated picnic tables that seemed to have seen better days. It felt as though time had forgotten this place, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. As I stepped out of my car, a chill ran down my spine. The air was thick with an unsettling stillness, and I felt a knot forming in my stomach. I glanced around, taking in the surroundings. There were no other vehicles in the lot, and the restrooms appeared to be closed, their doors hanging slightly ajar, as if inviting me to enter. I hesitated, my instincts screaming at me to get back in the car and drive away, but I brushed off the feeling, convincing myself that I was just being paranoid. After all, I needed to stretch my legs and grab a quick snack before continuing my journey. As I walked toward the vending machines, I noticed a figure lurking in the shadows near the edge of the parking lot. My heart raced as I tried to make out the person's features, but the dim light obscured their face. I felt a wave of unease wash over me, and I quickened my pace, hoping to reach the machines before the stranger noticed me. The tension in the air was palpable, and I could feel my pulse quickening as I approached the vending machines, their bright colors a stark contrast to the gloom surrounding me. Just as I reached for my wallet, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around, and my heart dropped. The figure had emerged from the shadows, revealing a tall man with a scruffy beard and a menacing glare. He wore a tattered jacket and jeans that looked like they had seen better days. The look in his eyes sent a jolt of fear through me, and I instinctively took a step back, my mind racing with thoughts of how to escape this unsettling situation. "Hey there," he said, his voice low and gravelly. "You lost or something?" The way he spoke sent chills down my spine, and I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end. I forced a smile, trying to mask my fear. "No, just taking a break," I replied, my voice trembling slightly. I could feel the tension in the air thickening, and I knew I had to tread carefully. The man took a step closer, invading my personal space. "You shouldn't be out here alone at this hour," he said, his tone dripping with menace. "This place isn't safe." My heart raced as I scanned the area for any signs of help, but the rest stop was deserted. The fear coursing through me was almost suffocating, and I could feel my palms growing clammy as I clutched my wallet tightly. "I'll be fine," I managed to say, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "I just need to grab a snack, and then I'll be on my way." But the man didn't seem convinced. He stepped even closer, and I could smell the stale cigarettes on his breath. "You really shouldn't be here," he repeated, his eyes narrowing as he studied me. "You never know who you might run into." Panic surged through me as I realized the gravity of the situation. I was alone at a desolate rest stop with a stranger who clearly had ill intentions. My mind raced as I considered my options. I could try to run back to my car, but what if he followed me? I could call for help, but there was no one around to hear me. The tension in the air was thick, and I could feel the weight of fear pressing down on me. In that moment, I made a split-second decision. I took a deep breath and forced myself to stand tall, trying to project an air of confidence I didn't feel. "Look, I really need to go," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "I'm just passing through, and I don't want any trouble." The man's expression shifted slightly, as if he was weighing his options. For a brief moment, I thought I might have gotten through to him, but then he stepped even closer, his eyes narrowing. "You think you can just come here and leave whenever you want?" he sneered, his voice dripping with hostility. My heart raced as I realized I had underestimated the danger I was in. The tension escalated, and I could feel my breath quickening as adrenaline coursed through my veins. I had to get out of there. In a moment of desperation, I turned on my heel and sprinted back toward my car, my heart pounding in my chest. I could hear the man's footsteps behind me, and I pushed myself to run faster, fear propelling me forward. I fumbled with my keys as I reached my car, my hands shaking as I tried to unlock the door. The sound of his footsteps grew louder, and I could feel panic rising within me. Finally, the door clicked open, and I jumped inside, slamming the door shut behind me. I locked the doors and quickly started the engine, my heart racing as I glanced in the rearview mirror. The man stood just a few feet away, watching me with a sinister grin on his face. I could feel the tension in the air as I backed out of the parking space, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. As I sped away from the rest stop, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that lingered in my chest. The encounter had left me shaken, and I realized just how quickly a seemingly ordinary road trip could turn into a nightmare. The rest stop faded into the distance, but the fear remained. A chilling reminder of
As I drove away from the desolate rest stop, my heart still racing from the unsettling encounter, I thought I had escaped the worst of it. However, fate had other plans for me. Just a few miles down the road, I noticed a car tailing me closely, its headlights glaring in my rearview mirror. My stomach sank as I realized the vehicle was not just following. It was trying to signal me to pull over. Anxiety gripped me, and I instinctively pressed the accelerator, hoping to put distance between us. But the car matched my speed, and soon it was right beside me. Before I could react, the driver, a man with a menacing glare, gestured for me to pull over. Panic surged through me, and I knew I had to comply. I reluctantly steered my car to the side of the road, my heart pounding in my chest. The man parked his car behind mine and stepped out, his intentions clear. He approached my window, and I could see the glint of something metallic in his hand. My breath caught in my throat as I realized it was a gun. "Get out of the car," he demanded, his voice low and threatening. I could feel the blood drain from my face as I complied, my hands shaking uncontrollably. I stepped out, trying to maintain a facade of calm, but inside, I was a whirlwind of fear and confusion. "Just take what you want," I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. The robber's eyes narrowed, and he motioned for me to move away from the car. "Wallet, phone, everything," he ordered, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. I quickly reached into my pocket and pulled out my wallet, handing it over to him. My mind raced as I thought about how to escape the situation. I could see the desperation in his eyes, a wildness that hinted at his willingness to resort to violence if necessary. I handed him my phone, praying that compliance would keep me safe. "Now get in the woods," he commanded, gesturing toward a dense thicket just off the road. My heart sank as I realized he intended to lead me away from the road, away from any chance of help. The fear coursing through me was almost paralyzing, but I knew I had no choice. I took a deep breath and stepped forward, my instincts screaming at me to run, but I forced myself to comply.
As we moved deeper into the forest, the trees closed in around us, casting eerie shadows in the fading light. The sounds of the highway faded away, replaced by the rustling of leaves and the distant calls of wildlife. I could feel the weight of fear pressing down on me, and I fought to keep my composure. The robber walked behind me, his presence a constant reminder of the danger I was in. I could hear the crunch of twigs underfoot, each sound amplifying my anxiety. "Keep walking," he ordered, his voice cold and unyielding. I quickened my pace, my mind racing with thoughts of escape. I had to find a way out of this situation, but the dense forest offered no clear path. The deeper we went, the more isolated I felt, and the realization that I was completely at his mercy sent a wave of dread through me. Suddenly, we reached a small clearing, and I felt a surge of panic. The robber motioned for me to stop, and I turned to face him, my heart pounding in my chest. "Get on your knees," he demanded, and I could see the tension in his body, the way his finger twitched near the trigger of the gun. My mind raced as I considered my options. I could comply, but what would happen next? Would he harm me? Would he leave me here? The fear of the unknown was suffocating. In that moment, I felt a surge of adrenaline. I had to act. As I knelt down, I quickly scanned the area for anything I could use to my advantage. My eyes darted around, searching for a branch, a rock, anything that could help me escape. But the clearing was barren, and I felt a sense of hopelessness wash over me. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. "Please, just take what you want and let me go," I pleaded, my voice trembling. The robber's expression shifted slightly, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "You think I'm just going to let you walk away?" He sneered, but there was a hesitation in his tone that gave me a glimmer of hope. Just then, a loud noise echoed through the forest, a rustling in the bushes nearby. The robber's attention shifted, and I seized the opportunity. In a split second, I sprang to my feet and bolted toward the trees, adrenaline propelling me forward. I could hear him shouting behind me, but I didn't look back. I ran as fast as I could, my heart pounding in my ears, the fear of being caught driving me onward. The forest was thick, branches scratching at my arms and legs as I pushed through the underbrush. I could hear the robber's footsteps behind me, but I refused to let fear consume me. I focused on the sound of my own breath, the rhythm of my feet hitting the ground, and the desperate hope that I could escape this nightmare. After what felt like an eternity, I burst through the trees and stumbled onto the side of the road. I could see my car in the distance, and I sprinted toward it, my heart racing with a mix of fear and relief. I fumbled with my keys, my hands shaking as I unlocked the door and jumped inside. I slammed the door shut and locked it, my breath coming in ragged gasps. As I sat there, trembling and wide-eyed, I realized I had narrowly escaped a life-threatening situation. The shock of what had just happened washed over me, and I felt a wave of relief mixed with disbelief. I was safe, but the reality of the encounter lingered in my mind like a dark cloud. I had faced a terrifying moment, and I knew I would never take my safety for granted again. With shaking hands, I started the engine and pulled away from the scene, my heart still racing. The forest faded into the distance, but the memory of the encounter would stay with me forever. I had escaped, but the fear of the unknown would always be a part of my journey, a chilling reminder of the unpredictability of life on the road. The encounter at the forest's edge left an indelible mark on my psyche, one that I would carry with me long after the adrenaline had faded and the immediate danger had passed. As I drove away from that desolate rest stop, my heart still racing, I felt a tumult of emotions swirling within me. Humiliation washed over me like a cold wave. I had complied with the robber's demands, surrendering my belongings and my sense of safety. I had allowed fear to dictate my actions, and the realization that I had been so vulnerable in that moment gnawed at me. I had always prided myself on being self-sufficient and capable, yet here I was, a victim of circumstance, reduced to a state of helplessness. Yet, alongside that humiliation was an overwhelming sense of gratitude. I was alive. I had escaped a potentially life-threatening situation, and for that, I felt a profound appreciation. The relief of survival was palpable, but it was tinged with the bitter aftertaste of fear. I found myself grappling with the duality of these emotions, thankful to be unharmed, yet deeply unsettled by the experience. It was a strange juxtaposition that left me feeling disoriented, as if I were caught in a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts and feelings. In the days that followed, I made a firm decision. I would never stop at a rest stop again. The thought of returning to a place that had become synonymous with fear and vulnerability was unbearable. I began to plan my trips with meticulous care, mapping out routes that would allow me to avoid any potential stops along the highway. The idea of pulling over, even for a moment, filled me with dread. I would rather drive for hours without a break than risk encountering another situation like the one I had just faced. This decision, while protective, also served as a reminder of the trauma I had experienced. It was a constant echo of the fear that had taken root in my mind. The lasting effects of that encounter began to manifest in various ways. I found myself hyper-aware of my surroundings, scanning parking lots and rest areas for any signs of danger. Every time I approached a rest stop, my heart would race, and I would feel a knot tighten in my stomach. The once mundane act of stopping for a break had transformed into a source of anxiety. I became increasingly anxious in unfamiliar environments, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. The world outside my car felt more threatening than ever, and I struggled to shake the feeling that danger lurked around every corner. Sleep became elusive as well. I would lie awake at night, replaying the events of that day in my mind, each detail etched into my memory. The robber's face, the sound of his voice, the weight of the gun in his hand. All of it haunted me. I would wake in a cold sweat, heart pounding, convinced that I was still in that clearing, still at the mercy of a stranger. The trauma had woven itself into the fabric of my daily life, casting a shadow over my thoughts and actions. I also noticed a shift in my relationships. Friends and family would ask about my road trip, and I would smile, trying to mask the turmoil beneath the surface. I felt a sense of isolation, as if I were carrying a burden that no one else could understand. I wanted to share my experience, to express the fear and humiliation I had felt, but I feared that doing so would only invite pity or disbelief. Instead, I kept my feelings bottled up, creating a barrier between myself and those I cared about. The emotional toll of the encounter began to seep into my interactions, leaving me feeling distant and disconnected. In an effort to cope, I sought solace in routine. I immersed myself in work, throwing myself into projects that demanded my full attention. I thought that by keeping busy, I could outrun the shadows of my experience. But no matter how hard I tried, the memories would creep back in, reminding me of the fragility of life and the unpredictability of the world around me. I found myself questioning my choices, my sense of security, and my ability to navigate the world without fear. Eventually, I realized that I needed to confront the trauma head-on. I sought therapy, hoping to find a way to process the emotions that had become so overwhelming. In those sessions, I began to unpack the layers of fear, humiliation, and gratitude that had intertwined within me. I learned that it was okay to feel vulnerable, that acknowledging my emotions was a crucial step toward healing. The therapist helped me understand that while the encounter had changed me, it did not have to define me. I could reclaim my sense of safety and agency, but it would take time and effort. As I worked through my feelings, I also began to recognize the strength that had emerged from the experience. Surviving such a harrowing encounter had shown me a resilience I didn't know I possessed. I learned to appreciate the small moments of joy in life, the simple pleasures that had once gone unnoticed. I found solace in nature, taking walks in familiar parks and breathing in the fresh air, allowing myself to reconnect with the world around me. While the trauma of that encounter would always be a part of my story, I began to see it as a chapter rather than the entire narrative. I learned to navigate my fears, to acknowledge them without allowing them to control my life. The decision to avoid rest stops became a symbol of my commitment to self-preservation, a reminder that I could take charge of my own safety. In time, I found a new sense of balance. I learned to embrace the unpredictability of life while also recognizing the importance of being cautious. The emotional and psychological impact of that encounter would forever shape my perspective, but it also ignited a desire to live fully and authentically. I emerged from the experience with a deeper understanding of myself, a newfound appreciation for the fragility of life, and a determination to face whatever challenges lay ahead with courage and resilience. It was a dark and stormy night when Dan found himself navigating the slick, rain-soaked roads that wound through the countryside. The relentless downpour blurred the lines of the highway, transforming familiar landmarks into indistinct shadows. The rhythmic sound of raindrops against the windshield created a hypnotic backdrop, lulling him into a false sense of security. He had driven this route countless times, but tonight felt different. The heavy clouds hung low in the sky, casting an oppressive gloom that seemed to seep into his very bones. As he gripped the steering wheel, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, an unsettling premonition that gnawed at the edges of his mind. Dan had always been a cautious driver, but the combination of the rain and the late hour heightened his anxiety. The headlights of oncoming cars sliced through the darkness, illuminating the road ahead in fleeting bursts. He squinted through the windshield, trying to focus on the path before him, but the rain made it difficult to see more than a few feet ahead. Each time he hit a puddle, the car would momentarily hydroplane, sending a jolt of fear through him. He felt a strange sense of foreboding, as if the universe was trying to warn him of an impending danger. It was a feeling he couldn't quite articulate, a mix of intuition and dread that settled heavily in his stomach. As he drove, Dan's mind began to wander, reflecting on the events of the past week. He had been under immense stress at work, juggling deadlines and responsibilities that seemed to multiply by the day. The weight of it all felt suffocating, and he had been pushing himself to the limit, convinced that he could handle it all. But tonight, as the rain poured down and the road stretched endlessly before him, he felt a flicker of doubt. Was he really in control, or was he merely pretending to be? The thought sent a shiver down his spine, and he shook his head, trying to dispel the unease that clung to him like a damp fog. Suddenly, without warning, the world around him shifted. The headlights of a massive truck loomed in the distance, and Dan's heart raced as he realized it was barreling toward him at an alarming speed. Time seemed to slow as he instinctively swerved to avoid a collision, but the truck was too close, and the road was too slick. In that split second, everything changed. The sound of screeching tires filled the air, followed by a deafening crash that reverberated through the night. Dan's car spun out of control, the impact sending it careening off the road and into the darkness. The suddenness of the accident was surreal. One moment, he was driving cautiously, and the next, he was enveloped in chaos. The world outside his car became a blur of rain and metal, and he felt a jolt of pain as his body was thrown against the seatbelt. The airbag deployed with a loud pop, but it did little to cushion the force of the impact. Dan's heart raced as he struggled to comprehend what had just happened. The truck had struck him with such force that it felt as if time had fractured, leaving him suspended in a moment of sheer terror. As the car came to a halt, the rain continued to pour, drenching everything in a relentless downpour. Dan sat in stunned silence, his mind racing to process the chaos around him. The smell of burnt rubber and gasoline filled the air, mingling with the earthy scent of rain-soaked asphalt. He could hear the distant sound of sirens wailing, but it felt like they were coming from another world, far removed from the reality he was trapped in. Panic surged through him as he realized the gravity of the situation. He was alone, injured, and at the mercy of the elements. With trembling hands, Dan fumbled for his phone, praying that it hadn't been damaged in the crash. He could feel the adrenaline coursing through his veins, heightening his senses and amplifying his fear. As he glanced around, he noticed the shattered glass and crumpled metal that surrounded him, a stark reminder of how quickly life could change. The strange feelings he had experienced earlier now morphed into a chilling clarity. He understood that he had been teetering on the edge of disaster, and the accident had pulled him into a nightmare he couldn't escape. In that moment, the weight of his choices pressed down on him. He had been so consumed by work and the pressures of life that he had neglected to listen to the warnings his instincts had provided. The rain, the darkness, the strange sense of foreboding, it all made sense now. He had been driving on autopilot,
ignoring the signs that had been there all along. The realization hit him like a wave, crashing over him and leaving him gasping for breath. As the sirens grew louder, Dan felt a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. Help was on the way, but the consequences of the accident loomed large in his mind. He knew that his life would never be the same again. The near-fatal collision had shattered his sense of security, leaving him grappling with the fragility of existence. The emotional and psychological impact of that night would linger long after the physical wounds had healed. In the days that followed, Dan would reflect on the accident, the strange feelings that had preceded it, and the suddenness with which everything had changed. He would come to understand that life was unpredictable, and that sometimes the universe had a way of forcing us to confront our vulnerabilities. The rain-soaked night would forever be etched in his memory, a reminder of the thin line between safety and chaos, and the importance of heeding the whispers of intuition before it was too late. As Dan lay in the hospital bed, the sterile smell of antiseptic filled the air, mingling with the faint beeping of machines that monitored his vital signs. The accident had left him with a fractured rib and a concussion, but it was the emotional toll that weighed heavily on him. The days blurred together, each one marked by the same routine of physical therapy and visits from concerned friends and family. Yet, amidst the mundane hospital life, there was something else, an eerie presence that seemed to linger just beyond the periphery of his awareness. It started as a feeling, a sensation that crept over him like a chill in the air. Dan would often catch himself glancing toward the door, half expecting someone to enter. The nurses and doctors were friendly, but there was an unsettling quality to the atmosphere that he couldn't quite shake. It was as if the very walls of the hospital held secrets, whispering tales of those who had come before him. He often felt as though he was being watched, a sensation that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. It was during these moments that he would see a shadow flit past the doorway, just out of sight, leaving him with a sense of unease that lingered long after the figure had vanished. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the room was bathed in the soft glow of the bedside lamp, Dan's unease reached a crescendo. He was alone, the hospital quiet, except for the distant sounds of footsteps echoing down the corridor. Suddenly, he felt a chill sweep through the room, and he turned his head toward the window. There, standing just outside, was a figure cloaked in darkness. The silhouette was indistinct, but Dan could make out the outline of a person, their features obscured by the shadows. His heart raced as he squinted, trying to discern who or what was watching him. The figure seemed to sense his gaze, and for a fleeting moment their eyes locked. Dan felt a jolt of recognition, a strange familiarity that sent a shiver down his spine. It was as if he had seen this person before, but he couldn't place where or when. The figure stood motionless, an unsettling presence that seemed to draw the very light from the room. Just as quickly as it had appeared, the figure turned and vanished into the night, leaving Dan breathless and bewildered. In the days that followed, Dan became increasingly obsessed with the mysterious figure. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was a connection between this apparition and the road where his accident had occurred. He began to dig into the history of the highway, researching past accidents and incidents that had taken place along that stretch of road. What he uncovered sent chills down his spine. There had been numerous accidents over the years, some fatal, all occurring under similar circumstances. Rain-soaked nights, poor visibility, and a sense of foreboding that seemed to hang in the air. The more he learned, the more convinced he became that the figure was somehow tied to these tragedies. It was as if this entity was a guardian of the road, a spectral presence that lingered in the shadows, watching over those who ventured too close to the edge of danger. Dan felt a strange compulsion to uncover the truth behind this figure, to understand its connection to the accidents that had plagued the highway for years. He couldn't shake the feeling that the figure had been trying to communicate with him, to warn him of the dangers that lay ahead. Determined to get to the bottom of the mystery, Dan began to document his experiences in a journal. He wrote about the figure, the sensations he felt, and the history of the road. Each entry brought him closer to understanding the enigma that had invaded his recovery. He spent hours poring over old newspaper articles, piecing together the stories of those who had met with misfortune on that stretch of highway. The more he learned, the more he felt a sense of urgency to confront the figure again, to seek answers, and perhaps even closure. One night, emboldened by his research, Dan decided to take a walk around the hospital grounds. The air was crisp, and the moon hung low in the sky, casting an ethereal glow over the landscape. As he wandered, he felt a familiar chill envelop him, and he instinctively turned toward the edge of the property where the trees loomed dark and foreboding. There, just beyond the reach of the hospital lights, he saw the figure once more, standing silently among the shadows. His heart raced as he approached, a mix of fear and determination propelling him forward. "Who are you?" he called out, his voice trembling slightly. The figure remained still, shrouded in darkness, but Dan could feel an energy emanating from it, a pull that drew him closer. "Why are you here?" he pressed, desperation creeping into his tone. For a moment there was silence, and Dan felt as though the world had come to a standstill. Then, as if responding to his plea, the figure began to move. It stepped forward, revealing a glimpse of its features. A face that was both familiar and foreign. A visage that seemed to shift and change with the shadows. Dan's breath caught in his throat as he realized that the figure bore a striking resemblance to someone he had lost long ago, a friend who had perished in a tragic accident on that very road. The realization hit him like a tidal wave, and he felt a rush of emotions. Grief, anger, and a profound sense of longing. The figure seemed to sense his turmoil, and for the first time, Dan felt a connection that transcended the boundaries of life and death. It was as if the figure was there to guide him, to help him understand the fragility of existence and the importance of cherishing every moment. With newfound resolve, Dan stepped closer, determined to uncover the truth behind the figure's presence. "What do you want from me?" he asked, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotion swirling within him. The figure tilted its head, and Dan felt a surge of understanding wash over him. It was a reminder of the past, a call to confront the fears that had haunted him since the accident. As the figure began to fade into the shadows, Dan felt a sense of clarity. He understood that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but he was no longer afraid. The mysterious figure had awakened something within him, a determination to face the truth and embrace the journey of healing. He would not let fear dictate his life any longer. Instead, he would honor the memory of those who had come before him, using their stories as a guiding light on his path to recovery. With a renewed sense of purpose, Dan returned to the hospital, ready to confront the emotional scars left by the accident. The figure may have been a haunting presence, but it had also become a catalyst for change, propelling him toward a deeper understanding of himself and the world around him. As he settled back into his hospital room, he felt a sense of peace wash over him, knowing that he was no longer alone in his journey. The figure would always be a part of his story, a reminder of the fragility of life and the strength that comes from facing one's fears head-on. Late-night cravings often led me to the taco truck parked at the corner of Maple and 5th, a place that had become a staple in my routine. The vibrant colors of the truck, adorned with murals of dancing peppers and smiling tacos, always drew me in, promising a warm meal and a moment of comfort after a long day. I had visited this taco truck countless times, each visit marked by the familiar sounds of sizzling meat and the tantalizing aroma of spices wafting through the air. The owner, a jovial man named Carlos, always greeted me with a smile, and I had come to appreciate our brief exchanges as much as the food itself. On this particular night, the air was thick with humidity, and the streetlights flickered ominously as I approached the truck. The usual buzz of activity was absent. The parking lot was eerily quiet, and a sense of unease settled over me. I shrugged it off, attributing it to the late hour and the oppressive heat. After all, I was just here for my usual order of carne asada tacos, and nothing could ruin that for me. As I stepped closer, I noticed that the truck's lights were dimmer than usual, casting long shadows across the pavement. When I reached the window, I was met with an unsettling sight. The window was partially open, but there was no sign of Carlos. I called out his name, but my voice echoed back to me, swallowed by the silence. My heart began to race as I peered inside the truck, hoping to catch a glimpse of him. What I saw sent a chill down my spine. The interior was in disarray, taco ingredients strewn across the floor. The grill still sizzling but unattended, and the cash register wide open, its contents missing. Panic surged through me as I realized what had happened. The taco truck had been robbed. I stepped back, my mind racing with thoughts of Carlos. Had he been hurt? Was he inside, trapped, or worse? The unsettling feeling of helplessness washed over me, and I felt a knot form in my stomach. I glanced around the empty parking lot, searching for any signs of life, but the streets were deserted. The weight of the situation pressed down on me, and I felt a wave of concern for the man who had always treated me with kindness. I hesitated for a moment, torn between the instinct to flee and the need to help. I couldn't just leave Carlos in a vulnerable state. Summoning my courage, I stepped closer to the truck, my heart pounding in my chest. "Carlos!" I shouted again, my voice trembling. There was no response, only the distant sound of a car passing by, its headlights illuminating the scene for a brief moment before disappearing into the night. With a deep breath, I pushed the door open, the metal creaking ominously as I stepped inside. The chaos was overwhelming. The once vibrant space now felt cold and foreboding, the remnants of a robbery hanging in the air like a dark cloud. I scanned the interior, searching for any sign of Carlos, but the truck was empty. The grill continued to hiss, and the smell of grilled meat lingered, a stark contrast to the unsettling atmosphere. "Carlos, are you here?" I called out, my voice echoing in the confined space. My heart raced as I moved deeper into the truck, my eyes darting around for any clues. The cash register was empty, and the floor was littered with taco toppings. Cilantro, onions, and lime wedges scattered like confetti from a party that had turned sour. The sight made my stomach churn, and I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. As I turned to leave, I noticed a small door at the back of the truck, slightly ajar. My instincts screamed at me to turn back, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to check. What if Carlos was back there, hurt or in trouble? I approached the door, my heart pounding in my ears, and pushed it open. The small storage area was dark, and I squinted into the shadows, calling out Carlos's name once more. "Carlos!" I shouted, my voice filled with urgency. The silence that followed was deafening, and I felt a chill run down my spine. I stepped inside, the darkness enveloping me, and my heart raced as I strained to hear any sign of life. Just as I was about to turn back, I heard a faint groan. My heart leaped into my throat, and I rushed toward the sound, my mind racing with fear. There, on the floor, lay Carlos, his face pale and bruised. Relief washed over me, but it was quickly replaced by a wave of concern. "Carlos!" I knelt beside him, my hands trembling as I checked for injuries. "What happened? Are you okay?" He looked up at me, his eyes filled with pain and confusion. They came in and took everything," he gasped, wincing as he tried to sit up. I tried to fight them off, but there were too many. My heart sank as I listened to his words, the reality of the situation crashing down on me. I felt a surge of anger and helplessness. How could someone do this to him? He was just trying to make a living, serving late-night tacos to hungry patrons like me. "Did they hurt you?" I asked, my voice shaking. Carlos shook his head slowly, but the pain etched on his face told a different story. "Just a few bruises. I'll be okay," he replied, but I could see the fear in his eyes. I didn't want to give them the money, but they threatened me. The weight of his words hung heavy in the air, and I felt a surge of empathy for the man who had always greeted me with warmth and kindness. I helped Carlos to his feet, supporting him as he leaned against the wall of the truck. "We need to call the police," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. "You shouldn't be alone right now." He nodded, his expression a mix of gratitude and vulnerability. As I reached for my phone, I couldn't shake the feeling of helplessness that clung to me. I wanted to do more, to protect him from the world that had turned so cruel. As we waited for the police to arrive,
I couldn't help but reflect on the unsettling experience. The taco truck, once a place of comfort and joy, had transformed into a scene of chaos and fear. I felt a deep concern for Carlos, knowing that this incident would leave scars far beyond the physical injuries he had sustained. The robbery had shattered the sense of safety that had once enveloped the truck, and I knew it would take time for both of us to heal from the trauma of that night. When the police finally arrived, I felt a mix of relief and anxiety. They took our statements, their presence a reminder that help was here, but the reality of the situation weighed heavily on my heart. I watched as Carlos recounted the events, his voice trembling as he spoke. I felt a surge of anger at the thought of someone preying on him, a man who had always treated me with kindness. As the night wore on, I stayed by Carlos's side, offering support and comfort as best I could. The taco truck, once a beacon of late-night indulgence, had become a symbol of vulnerability and fear. I knew that the road to recovery would be long, but I was determined to stand by Carlos through it all. Together, we would navigate the aftermath of this unsettling experience, finding strength in our shared resilience and the hope that one day, the taco truck would once again be a place of warmth and laughter. In the days following the unsettling incident at the taco truck, I found myself grappling with a whirlwind of emotions that seemed to ebb and flow like the tides. The chaotic scene replayed in my mind, a haunting reminder of the vulnerability that lurked beneath the surface of everyday life. I couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty regarding Carlos, the taco truck owner. Though he had assured me he would be okay, the reality of his situation weighed heavily on my heart. I had witnessed the fear in his eyes, the way his hands trembled as he recounted the robbery, and I couldn't help but wonder what lasting effects this experience would have on him. Would he return to the truck? Would he feel safe serving customers again? The questions gnawed at me, leaving me restless and anxious. The uncertainty of Carlos's fate loomed over me like a dark cloud. I had seen him as a fixture in my late-night routine, a friendly face who greeted me with warmth and laughter. Now that familiarity felt shattered, replaced by a sense of unease. I found myself driving past the taco truck every night, hoping to see it parked at the corner, but each time I was met with disappointment. The absence of the vibrant colors and the inviting aroma of grilled meat left a void that echoed in my chest. I longed to know that he was okay, that he had found the strength to rebuild after such a traumatic event. The thought of him being alone, grappling with the aftermath of the robbery, filled me with a profound sense of helplessness. As I reflected on the incident, I was struck by a deep sense of regret. I realized that I didn't even know Carlos's last name. In all the times I had visited the taco truck, I had never taken the time to ask him. Our conversations had always been brief, filled with pleasantries and small talk, but I had never ventured beyond the surface. The realization hit me hard. I had treated him as a mere vendor rather than a person with a story, a life, and dreams of his own. The regret settled heavily in my heart, a reminder of how easily we can overlook the humanity in those we encounter daily. I had missed an opportunity to connect, to learn about the man behind the counter, and now it felt like a lost chance that I could never reclaim. The experience at the taco truck had left a lasting impact on my life, reshaping my perspective in ways I hadn't anticipated. I found myself questioning the fragility of existence, the thin veneer of safety that we often take for granted. The incident had peeled back the layers of my complacency, exposing the harsh reality that danger could strike at any moment, even in the most familiar of places. I became acutely aware of the world around me, noticing the small details I had previously overlooked, the way people interacted, the stories etched on their faces, and the struggles they carried silently. I began to understand that every person we encounter has their own battles, their own fears, and their own stories. The taco truck incident had illuminated the importance of connection, of reaching out to others and acknowledging their humanity. I felt a newfound urgency to engage with the people in my life, to ask questions, and to listen. I wanted to ensure that I never again took for granted the relationships that could be forged in the simplest of interactions. In the weeks that followed, I made a conscious effort to seek out opportunities for connection. I started visiting local businesses, striking up conversations with shop owners and employees, and learning their names. I wanted to create a sense of community, to foster relationships that went beyond mere transactions. Each interaction felt like a small step toward healing, both for myself and for those I encountered. I hoped that by acknowledging their stories, I could help create a sense of belonging that had been so starkly absent in the aftermath of the taco truck incident. Despite my efforts, the memory of that night lingered in the back of my mind, a constant reminder of the fragility of life. I often found myself reflecting on the lessons I had learned from the experience. I realized that while I couldn't change what had happened to Carlos, I could honor his struggle by living more intentionally. I wanted to be a source of support for others, to stand up against the injustices that plagued our communities, and to advocate for those who felt voiceless. The taco truck incident had ignited a fire within me, a desire to make a difference in the world, no matter how small. I began volunteering at local shelters, helping those in need and listening to their stories. Each encounter reinforced the idea that we are all interconnected, that our lives are woven together in a tapestry of shared experiences. I found solace in the knowledge that, by reaching out to others, I could help create a sense of hope and resilience in the face of adversity. As I continued to navigate the aftermath of the incident, I held onto the hope that Carlos would return to his taco truck, that he would reclaim his space in the community and continue to share his culinary gifts with the world. I envisioned him standing behind the counter, a smile on his face, serving up tacos with the same passion and joy that had drawn me to him in the first place. I wanted to be there when he did, to support him in any way I could, and to finally learn his name. The experience had changed me, reshaping my understanding of connection, vulnerability, and resilience. I had learned that life is unpredictable, that we must cherish the moments we have and the people we encounter along the way. The taco truck incident had been a catalyst for growth, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is an opportunity for light to shine through. I vowed to carry those lessons with me, to honor the humanity in others, and to never again take for granted the simple act of sharing a meal with someone who, like me, was navigating the complexities of life. In this video, we explored the unpredictable nature of road trips, highlighting the myriad dangers that can arise when we venture out onto the open road. While road trips are often romanticized as carefree adventures filled with scenic views and spontaneous fun, the reality can be quite different. We shared several harrowing stories that illustrate just how quickly a seemingly ordinary journey can take a turn for the worse. From mechanical failures in remote areas to unsettling encounters with strangers, these narratives serve as a stark reminder that danger can lurk around any corner, often when we least expect it. One of the key takeaways from our discussion is the importance of being prepared and vigilant during your travels. Road trips can be exhilarating, but they also come with their own set of challenges. We emphasize the need for thorough planning, including checking your vehicle before hitting the road, mapping out your route, and being aware of your surroundings at all times. It's crucial to trust your instincts. If something feels off, don't hesitate to take action. Whether it's choosing a well-lit rest stop or avoiding isolated areas, being cautious can make all the difference in ensuring a safe journey. Moreover, we encourage viewers to stay informed about the places they plan to visit. Researching local conditions, understanding the potential risks, and being aware of any recent incidents can help you make informed decisions while on the road. We also discuss the significance of having a reliable means of communication, such as a charged phone or a portable charger, to ensure you can reach out for help if needed. Remember, preparation is key to navigating the unpredictability of road trips. As we wrapped up the video, we invited viewers to share their own experiences with road trips, whether they were filled with adventure or fraught with challenges. We believe that sharing these stories can foster a sense of community and help others learn from our collective experiences. Your stories can serve as valuable lessons for fellow travelers, reminding them of the importance of caution and awareness while on the road. Finally, we encourage you to subscribe to our channel for more content that dives into the realities of travel, adventure, and the unexpected twists that life can throw our way. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with friends and family who might benefit from these insights. Together we can create a community that values safety and preparedness while embracing the thrill of exploration. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and we look forward to hearing your stories and experiences in the comments below.